Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter. I'm Rafael de Furia, and today I just so happen to be on Lake Garda, just outside of Pesquera. So I guess a little off in this direction down here, but I'm currently outside of the town. I happen to find myself back in Italy right now as everything is going on with this whole citizenship by descent debacle with the emergency decree that's come up. And I wanted to share some opinions that I have regarding this topic, just because it's something that I care a lot about. But over the years, I can say that there are certain factors that I've come to get to know better, having lived in Italy and having lived abroad as an Italian citizen. There are perspectives that I think are really important to think about, and it's not just that you're thinking about things as a dual Italian American citizen and oh my gosh, I'm supposed to have all of these rights and to be able to access this country and to do this and to that and to do the other. But also there are a lot of people who are from this country that have their own perspectives on how life works and how citizenship maybe even should work that are important to take into account. I mean, if you think about it realistically, when it comes to the whole citizenship by descent thing, a lot of Italians don't recognize on a social level, as I've mentioned before, Italian Americans as Italians. They just see them as foreigners, see us, these people. There's no way that that could even possibly be. In a way, I don't blame them. I mean, because Italian Americans and Italians are definitely quite different from one another. So why should it be that someone who had an ancestor who left generations ago should be able to get Italian citizenship? Why should they have a right to be able to call Italy home? And like I said, I don't blame people for having this opinion. I think there's a point to be made there. I don't fully agree with it because at the end of the day, of course, Italian Americans had to have some root from somewhere. It's not the same as being Italian from Italy on a social level, but there's a connection to the land nonetheless. So, of course, you're talking about on the social sense, but from the legal perspective, I still don't agree with how this emergency decree was made. I think it was very poorly done, even if I do think that some parts of it were genius, because this is the first time that any type of proposed change to Italian citizenship by descent has had some level, some minor level of any kind of potential of getting through. Whether I actually believe that it will go through as is a whole different story. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot wrong with it, and there would have to be a lot of changes to how it's done. I mean, here's one of the things. Again, as someone who got their dual citizenship years ago, I'm very grateful that when I need to, I can come back to this country. I'm back here right now. But making the type of content that I do online has given me a lot of exposure to opinions both of Italians from Italy as well as Italian Americans. And both have interesting points. Both make very good logical and emotional points. Or even there's the somewhat Americanized savior complex that can come into play from time to time, and hearing people say, oh my gosh, well, if I get my Italian citizenship, then of course I'm going to go and help the country, help rebuild and make the country what it once was, and so on and so on and so on. And while I do think there is something to say about that, at the same time, I mean, getting Italian citizenship, coming and buying a home in the country isn't necessarily going to do that. I mean, is it even a person's place to come and feel as though they have to do that to begin with? This is maybe a whole different topic to begin with, but at the end of the day, making an actual difference in what life is like here in this country, I would say is maybe not the most likely thing to happen. I mean, does the North need to change? Does the South need to change? Does any part of the country need to change? It is what it is. And I can see a lot of people from Italy getting frustrated with people coming in saying, well, wait, we've been here this whole time. How can you tell us what to do? I mean, you haven't been here. I mean, you don't speak the language. You don't this, you don't that. Or even the very Americanized dialect of a dialect. It doesn't necessarily represent how people actually speak the language. So if you grew up with some of those dialects, then maybe what you think of as the Italian language might not actually be the Italian language. But seeing how low the sun is in the sky, I think I'm going to head over to Peschiera and make my way to go have some dinner. One thing is to feel Italian. That's great. But what does it actually mean to be an Italian citizen? This is a topic that I've brought up many, many times, but to feel Italian, I don't think is enough to really make sure that you should have the ability to get citizenship. And yes, I am speaking as somebody who got Italian dual citizenship. But even though I have all of these opinions that might be more in agreement with those who come from Italy after living in Italy, I still can't help but believe that there shouldn't necessarily be any real limit on getting Italian citizenship by descent other than the limits that were already in place before this whole emergency decree and the minor issue all came up within these last months. I mean, the minor issue that's not so recent, but this emergency decree, that's the one that's very, very recent. There's so many flies around here. I don't know if you guys can see on camera, but there's like endless, just little flies just going around. Anyway, hope I haven't breathed any. I don't think that there should be a limit on being able to get Italian citizenship generational wise, but I do think that there should be some type of interest that needs to be meaningfully expressed to be able to go about actually going through the process, to actually put forward an application. I mean, there are so many people who just want to get the passport. Ooh. There's so many of these flies around. It's horrible. But there are so many people who just want to get the passport only to be able to go through the EU line when they're traveling to Europe. I can't blame them, but if that's the only reason why you want an Italian passport, that shouldn't be it. But at the same time, you have to look at things from a legal perspective. A person born outside of the country is just as Italian as somebody born in the country as long as their parents had the right to pass down Italian citizenship. There's no legal difference. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. Even there have been times in the Italian Citizenship podcast that I've used the word apply for Italian citizenship, but it's really more petition for Italian citizenship. But in a sense, you also are applying, but it's a small difference in the words that you're using, but there is a difference because you're making it known that you are an Italian citizen. But then at the same time, there are a lot of people who are very frustrated, and understandably so, that maybe they more recently found out that they could get Italian citizenship by descent, but then due to this emergency decree, this, which may be temporary, maybe not, or may be changed, have found out that they might not be able to get Italian citizenship after all. And so, yes, I do think if there are going to be some types of changes for generational limits, then put some type of time limit on it. That would make more sense, because to say, okay, there's this emergency decree, but active from yesterday, is that legal? I think that's a good question right there. But at the same time, to not be aware of this door that's been open for decades is not the responsibility of the Italian government necessarily to inform citizens or potential citizens or the people who may or may not be citizens who may not understand whether they are or aren't or this or that. It's not their responsibility to make sure that everybody knows. But if, of course, there were to be any type of generational limit, would it be better, of course, to maybe put some type of major publication out so that as many people as possible can find out? I would say that would definitely be the ideal. But would that happen? I think it would be highly unlikely. So yeah, it's horrible that there are these changes that have come to affect so many people. I mean, my heart really goes out to everybody affected by this. It's not something I'm happy to see. I think that we all should have this potential to be able to call Italy home. But this is getting back to what I was saying before. I do think that if someone's getting the citizenship of a nation, they should know what it's like to live there in some type of meaningful way. I mean, even to have a year, 2 years, 5 years. I mean, if you're going to be traveling using that passport or living in another European country using that passport, you should know on some level what it means to be Italian. Maybe that might sound a little extreme in this day and age, but having lived in Italy and having spent a lot of time here and being here right in this moment, I can say it's most definitely worthwhile to get to know this country. There's none other like it. There are so many different sides to this country. I mean, I'm here in the north on the Lake Garda right now, and if you go even to another lake in another region, I mean, that's also, even on the other side of the lake is already another region. I'm in the Veneto right now, and over on the other side of the lake is already Lombardy. So even this one little small area, yes, there can be things that connect the people, literally this lake being one of the things that connects them, but there can be differences. I mean, you go further north on the lake and you'll start finding people who are German speakers. Not that everybody will be, but I mean, this is a thing. And to get to know what this country has to offer rather than just the stories that maybe we've heard through our ancestors, I think is really valuable. But on that same note, I don't necessarily think a person should be forced to come here completely on their own without any kind of pathway to figure out how to live in the country if they've never lived here, especially if there haven't been any of their family members who've been here in a number of generations. I mean, I don't know, for example, you have, like, for Jewish kids to go and see Israel, you have that whole birthright thing where they take teens and young adults in their 20s, I think, to go see that country. I mean, I think if there were something for young Italians in the diaspora, the Italian diaspora, to see Italy and to get to know the country better and to maybe even volunteer, go work on a farm, go spend some time meaningfully in the country and to build real connections with the country, I think that would be a beautiful way of being able to get people excited to be able to call the country home, to be able to see what life is actually like here. The younger that you can integrate it into your life, the more meaningfully that it can really make an impact in who you are, the way you live, and the way you think. And even there are going to be ways of looking at the world and looking at how things work that are very different between an American perspective or an Australian perspective or a Canadian perspective and the perspective that you might find from someone in Italy itself. And to be able to understand how that all looks and to be able to understand this other perspective of how life goes for the average Italian citizen living in the country, I think could make a massive difference for those who are citizens living abroad. Because let's not forget, if you are an Italian citizen living abroad, that you'll have the right to vote. But what are you voting for? If you're coming in with your American ideals and morals and ways of moving through life, then that may not line up with what people in this country are actually needing. Because if you're going to be living abroad, your needs may slightly differ from those who are going to be here at home in this country. But of course, the reasoning behind this whole emergency decree has been due to the system being overburdened. So I don't blame the government for wanting to make some type of difference in what things are looking like and how they're handled, because there really are a huge number of people going through this process, and for them to all be trying to do the same thing does, in some ways, take a little bit away from those other citizens who are already citizens, or at least, I should say, already recognized as citizens, from the services that they might need. But at the same time, if these people are all equally citizens, just some are recognized, some are unrecognized, then that might change a little bit the perspective there, because you can't hold someone back. You can't hold two people back who are equally citizens from their rights. And this is one of the major problems with this decree, is it kind of creates a two-tier citizenship system, that those who live in the country are treated one way, where those who live outside of the country are treated another. I mean, would they be the only country that would have something like that? Maybe not. But based on how things have been for generations, it's definitely a major change, especially for those who are excited and really passionate about wanting to make Italy their home. Granted, maybe many people wouldn't be able to until they're retired, or they might not want to for practical reasons. And I definitely don't blame an individual for wanting to wait until they're retired and that they don't have to work, because Italy's work market comes with a very different set of opportunities than what you might find in other places. So this is also another thing. Why should somebody who leaves Italy today and has their child born abroad, why should their child be treated differently because they're born outside of the country? Okay, fine, maybe the child, if they're not raised in the country, wouldn't have that same connection that their parent might. But at the same time, why then second generation, third generation, fourth generation? Okay, fourth generation, I wouldn't blame them for putting a limit at the fourth generation. Third generation, maybe, but any change to the system comes along with a lot that has to be done, because it's not just as simple as, hey, this is going to be changed, la-di-da, everything's finished, everything's good, everything's ready to go. That's absolutely not the case at all. There are a lot of complexities to how this all works, because if you change one aspect, then you have to make sure how that interacts with another, and how that interacts with another, and how that interacts with another. So in a way, I can see it from two different perspectives, that I can see the wonderful, amazing things that can come from it as somebody who got their Italian citizenship by descent and lived in Italy. But then there's the other side, where as somebody who has their citizenship already and sees that if I need to access services at a consulate or a municipality or whatever they might be, those services could be a little bit more difficult to access because of maybe some of the lackings within the services themselves and how they're carried out. So is that necessarily an issue regarding that there's too many citizens? Maybe not. Maybe the actual issue is that there are not enough people working in the consulates. There are not enough clerks to be able to carry out these tasks. But of course that comes with expense to the government. And that expense to the government then comes directly out of the pockets of the citizens. So this is also another thing. If you are an Italian citizen and you're living in Italy, then there are taxes to be paid in Italy. If you are residing abroad, then in many situations there probably wouldn't be any taxes collected. So if the people who are outside of the country are putting a burden on the system, but then at the same time are not picking up the slack for that burden, is that fair to the people who are maybe already living here in Italy? I think that's another thing that's really should be considered. Don't get me wrong, I'm never going to be the person that's arguing for taxation or citizenship-based taxation. I will be the person arguing against it. But at the same time, I can almost see a point being made for it. Of course, in no way is this any type of simple topic. I mean, it's a very complicated topic with a lot to really think about, and the effects that could have. Because, I mean, even for me, for example, if I am going to have children one day, then if I could say that I would have a preference for one citizenship over another, I mean, my preference would be that my children would carry Italian citizenship rather than another one. There are many people who might have a differing opinion. I mean, for me, I can't say that I necessarily see the value of holding an American citizenship if you've not lived there your entire adult life, or even since you were a child, or really at all. So even if you were to ask me, would I want my children to have American citizenship, if it were a question of they could only have one or only the other, I mean, I might go say hard pass. I mean, for many people, I'm not speaking for myself here, but I know for many people who live abroad full time and don't have many ties to the US, that having American citizenship can actually be quite impractical. So if I have children, 99.999%, or I mean probably 150% going to be born outside of the US, and so even knowing what life is like there. So that also brings me to another thought that, okay, I did actively make that choice to go and live in a different country. Why should someone a few generations down the line have the say whether they get that citizenship or not? Why should I have that choice to be able to make that choice for them? It gets into a lot of complicated places, because I may personally not see it as a great choice for them, but there could be something in a few generations' time that they see a benefit to having that citizenship, or having the legal right to be able to call that place home. I have the right to be here and live here and be a citizen. Thank God. I'm very grateful that I do have that right to be able to call this place home. And I do see myself returning to Italy and making it my home again. And so I can say that I'm very grateful for the system as it was. Hopefully we'll see some really positive updates, and that this whole emergency decree doesn't actually stick. I mean, whether it will go back to how things were, who knows? I mean, this emergency decree has been made, and it's not guaranteed that it will go through. So let's see. The likelihood, it could be, it might not be. It's impossible to say at this point anyway. But anyway, I'm Rafael di Furia, back at it again on another Friday night. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. It's been great to be here back in Italy with you guys. It has been absolutely a joy to be able to come back and experience this country. Thank you to those of you who help to make these episodes possible on a monthly basis. The RafaelDeFuria.com/Patreon, Patreon.com/RafaelDeFuria, as well as the thank you button here on YouTube. But of course, again, I'm Rafael Defuria. Stay safe and healthy out there. And I will see you all next time. Ciao from Lake Garda. Later.